Have you ever wondered why some men refuse to admit they're wrong, even when the evidence is right in front of them? Why does criticism sometimes trigger anger instead of reflection? Why do some men walk away from relationships rather than apologize? Is it pride? Is it insecurity? Or is there something much deeper happening inside the male mind? Today, we're uncovering the truth about the male ego and why understanding it could completely change the way you see human behavior. Let's begin. Before we talk about male ego, let's clear up one big misunderstanding. Ego is not the same as confidence. A confident person doesn't need to prove they're better than everyone else. An ego-driven person often does. Psychologists describe the ego as part of our identity, our sense of who we are. It protects our self-image, and that's not always a bad thing. A healthy ego gives us confidence, motivation, and resilience. But when the ego becomes fragile, it starts protecting itself at all costs, sometimes even against the truth. From a young age, many boys receive powerful messages. Be strong. Don't cry. Never show weakness. Always win. Over time, these expectations can become part of how some men define themselves. Success becomes identity. Strength becomes identity. Being right becomes identity. So when someone criticizes them, they don't always hear feedback. Sometimes, their brain interprets it as a threat to who they are. That's why some men become defensive instead of curious. Not because they're bad people, but because their self-image feels under attack. Admitting you're wrong sounds easy, but psychologically, it can feel incredibly uncomfortable. Imagine spending years believing you're intelligent, capable, and respected. Now imagine making a mistake. For some people, that mistake feels like proof they're a failure. Instead of accepting reality, the ego searches for protection. It makes excuses, it blames others, it changes the subject, or simply refuses to admit the truth. This doesn't happen only to men, but social expectations can sometimes make these reactions more common or more visible. Ironically, the strongest people aren't those who never make mistakes. They're the ones who can admit them without losing their confidence. Here's something surprising. Behind many ego-driven behaviors is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of looking weak, fear of losing respect. When people feel emotionally safe, they usually don't need to prove themselves. But when insecurity grows, the ego often becomes louder. Sometimes arrogance is simply insecurity wearing a mask. Let's compare. A confident man says, "I made a mistake." An ego-driven man says, "It wasn't my fault." A confident man listens. An ego-driven man argues. A confident man keeps learning. An ego-driven man believes he already knows everything. Confidence attracts respect. Ego demands respect. And there's a huge difference. Real strength isn't about always being right. Real strength is being willing to grow. So, what's the truth about the male ego? The truth is, ego itself isn't the enemy. Every human being has one. The real problem begins when protecting the ego becomes more important than protecting relationships, learning, or personal growth. The strongest men aren't the loudest. They aren't the ones who always win every argument. They're the ones who can admit mistakes, learn from criticism, stay calm under pressure, and continue growing. Because confidence says, "I know my worth," but ego says, "I have to prove my worth." And those are two completely different things. If this video helped you understand the psychology behind male ego, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.